Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to see how to make the hard industrial techno of SLVL. So as usual, we're going to go through all the elements that you've heard in the intro. You can get the product file in the link in the description to follow along the tutorial. Alright, here we go.
Bow your soul before the devil.
Alright, so I'm going to start with the kick. So for the kick, I've used several layers. I'm going to first start to explain this first layer that I have. On top of this layer, I've added supporting elements that we're going to see after. So for this first layer, of course, there is lots of groove processing and there is lots more sense to show you the different layers with the groove processing on, because that's the way I did it. I usually put on the groove processing, especially for these heavy industrial kicks, already some saturation. So we have this big saturator here. So see, without it, just not the same. And I have also this amp, especially for the high end. So I'm going to keep them. I'm going to explain after what I did for this group processing, but we're going to go through each element now. So I have first my main kick. For this main kick, I have first this sample. So this is a randomer sample, which is already very good. So it's quite dry, but it's like very punchy in the high end, and that's what I want for this type of kick. So already I'm adding a bit of saturation on top of it with that saturation medium curve. I'm gonna boost the medium and gonna put already some reverb, and I'm actually gonna go and put some reverb on each layer because that's what you want for this kind of kick. And also I'm making sure I have everything in mono in the low end, and I already put something very wide in the high end. So this is my main punch. And on top of that, I'm gonna add some higher punches. So this is all some layers of some kind of perks, snares or whatever. And this is gonna bring really that high end. And there's lots of reverb already. So I have reverb on the group. So this is this Rome reverb. So what I do is I put some parallel processing. So I put a dry signal and I put another chain with a 100% reverb that I make sure without any lows. I also sidechain here. And I like this reverb because it's very airy. It's a kind of plate reverb. And this gives something very reverby like this. And then I'm just stacking like some percussions. So sometimes I take these random perks like this, and then I can just, you see, already have some, get some really interesting tones just by pitching down those very high end perks, and you create some low end and actually some pitch envelope by doing this. And I'm also doing a pinch envelope like manually with this kind of EQs. And I did the same for this other punch. So this one is dry like this. This one is pitched down also. And this one also pitched down. And so all of this, it creates something very dense. Very heavy in the higher and medium frequencies. That kind of adds to the main kick. And so already this gives something powerful for the punch and the high end. Next I have my offbeat. This is my rumble. So for the rumble I've used 3 layers. I have my sub layer. I think it's the sub that I did for the Visuals Back video. Nothing special here. It's done through reverb. So a kick through a reverb, convolution reverb 100%, then render it, then put some amp, and then just do some heavy EQs just to keep the lows like this. And then there's the grid layers. So this is some impacts that I've pitched down to different tones. And with that pedal, with some fuzz mode and some heavy distortion, you get that grid. And both together create some very dense distortion and grit in the low end and medium lows. And so all together it creates that tail that I then balance a bit with that EQ. It was a bit resonating here. And so all together it creates already a good kick. And sometimes you can add some textures layer, and the texture can come from already pre-made kicks. So this one is from LS41 pack, but you can see that at first it was like, it was a kick. But I then pitched it down and I create this really interesting distortion and layer that I can then add to the rest of my punch. Of course, I'm sidechaining because I have already lots of frequencies in the punch, so I don't want some more. And so all together, I have my kick. So here I have lots of frequencies. It's very full, it's very dense, but it's a bit flat because I then add lots of saturation. I also added a bit more parallel reverb here with that round reverb that I did also on the punch. And then I'm just already EQing some resonances. So you have usually lots of resonances here around 200, 300 Hertz. And putting the amp for another layer of distortion. So then I have this layer of kick, but it's very flat, so it lacks a bit of punch. So what I do here is I put back some punch layer to gain some dynamic. So this is my kick that I rendered to audio. And I have lowered, of course, the volume. And then I'm just gonna add lots of dynamic EQs. So it's a good way, if you have a kick that is too compressed, to put back some dynamic. So you can lower the volume, put some other top kick layers to put a bit some dynamic on the punch. And then you can also manage the different frequencies with some dynamic EQs. So you see the difference. So what I do here is I really take the time to hear what's better by boosting each frequency. So usually a kick, it's a pitch envelope. So it's better to have more high end at the beginning and then it just goes down with some lower frequency at the end of the kick. So what I do is I can make this kind of dynamic EQs where I boost gently the low end at the end and I boost the high end at the beginning and then just goes down. So this way I bring back some dynamic and I did a few of these EQs until I reach a result that I wanted. And I also just added a layer of reverb to put a bit more groove, and also on these top kicks. So this is just some impacts or perks or whatever. It's just to give also the transient a bit more boost. And then I put also some rooms. So on top of this, each of these top kick has a convolution reverb. And so all of this together create that kick. So here it's really about taking the time to hear the different frequencies, kind of balance everything out, and using dynamic EQ, it's way more effective if you have something flat or too compressed than just having normal EQs. So also at the end, on the top of the group, I've added a bit more distortion with that trash unit. So it's very mild because otherwise I will already recompress the whole thing and I don't want that. And it's just here like the final touch. So it's a bit of that blues drive and I make sure I don't go too high in the gain, and here it's very dry. I have a little wet signal. And I have also this Oxford inflator. So this is a plugin that you might have seen in other tutorials, but it's actually very good. It's a kind of a exciter. It makes the harmonics a bit more present, and it's kind of a magical tool. Like if you put in the plugin and out, It really brings some warmth, and I'm gonna use it now because I've just bought it. Actually, it's now for $30 available for Black Friday, so I think it's a good opportunity to get it because otherwise it costs like $150. So it's a pretty good tool. Does some pretty magic that, from what I've seen on the tutorials. And this is the final kick. So after my kick, I have done some drums. So kind of identify in the tracks of SLVL, sometimes it's really using those drill hi-hats like this. So you actually have drill kit in Ableton with those kind of hi-hats, and you can create then some patterns, some drill patterns to make this kind of hi-hats. On top of that, I've added a bit more room, of course. So this is the room that I've used for each element actually, and especially for the drums. So I have first a layer of Alala Vintage reverb. I also use that groove that I discovered from the last tutorial on Ararico, but it's very interesting actually to bring some ghost notes and a bit of room to the percussion. It's more lively, and then it's just EQing. So it was very harsh. So I wanted something more resonant in the frequency range, and just getting rid of that transient with the clipper, then sidechaining. And I do quite the same with the open hat. So it's just a different pattern, and this time it's just a 909 hat that I distort a bit, and then I put quite the same room, and then it's just about EQing again, really using your ears. You see there's this kind of resonances that you can hear, and usually it's the same kind of frequencies, so 4000 Hertz, 10k Hertz, and sidechain, and yeah, so at this one. Then I put it very wide with that width, the bass mono plugin. Also, I make sure it's more centered because my initial sample was a bit on the left. So I had to balance, and same for the open hat. It was a bit on the right, so I wanted something more in the center, even if I have lots of width thanks to this. And finally I have a ride, so it's a basic 99 ride with that pattern. And again, it's just some EQs. Because it was too resonating. And yeah, same reverb, sidechain, and that's it. And that's pretty much it for my drums. So after that, I have my vocal. So I have two vocals in this track. I have made that shouting vocal. And actually, funny thing is that it's my voice. It's just that there are lots of processing, but usually it's just me that is whispering through the mic. So I just did this like a why, like whispering like this, and just with lots of amp distortion, create that kind of effect, and lots of reverb also. So I have a very short reverb to make it resonate just the background, and I have a longer reverb to create the tail in the room after this, and then just widening and clipping. And you can create that kind of angry feeling. So I think I have also just pitched down. The initial vocal was like this. So already you can create a monster just by pitching down this sample. And then with the processing, that's good. Then I can just alternate different pitch if I want. So here it was shorter. And I have also this vocal.
Bind your soul before the devil.
And what's interesting in this is that I've used this kind of a shopping effect. And I think it does this a lot, SLVL in this track. So you can find a phrase that is telling the vocal and just chopping up the samples. Could have done also this, like this. And create this kind of a shopping effect. As you wish. And so you can create interesting rhythmic patterns by chopping up these kind of samples. So then I have my Screech. So for the Screech, I have some Screech that I've made through Serum. So the way I explained in my tutorial on the screeches. And I have also this kind of screech that I made from using the vocal that I did. So I just took the whispering vocal that I took here, and I just taking apart and using the arpeggiator. So of course I'm using the same processing that I have here, so lots of amp that creates the noise with the reverb, the delay, the overdrive, especially putting the overdrive after the reverb. It creates a difference, and then it's just sidechaining and the usual effect. But here I'm using the arpeggiator. And so what you can do here, instead of using the rate like this, you can use the rate in milliseconds. You can just type on Google like BPM delay, 160 BPM delay rate, and you're gonna get the exact numbers to do the 1/16, 1/12 effect. And then you can just start here. So here the 94 milliseconds was the rate for doing 1/16 note. And then you can just play with the automation like this at the end to create that kind of effect. So it's better because if you are in this rate, it's mandatory to go from 1/16 to 1/8, and so the effect is not the same, you see. So that's one way to do it. And then I just created another one without the arpeggiator, or with a different rate, I guess. And this one was creating like call and answers with the auto screech. And so for this one, it's one screech, so it's Screech 8 that I did for the tutorial. So it's lots of saw waves with this layer also, and it's just a noise. You have some noise oscillation with the KS1. Yeah, so you can check my tutorial if you like. And here I use this auto filter to create that resonancy around 1K, and that's pretty much it. And I think I'm also using here the autopan to create that stutter effect. So you see you can activate it after to have the effect only on the reverb. You can activate it during the note, when the note is playing, so it creates already the effect. And it's just putting the phase here to 0, and it creates a kind of a sidechain directly on the sound. And that creates that kind of stutter effect. And I think I did the same here. Whereas this one, it's just that it's a different screech. You have a different envelope here with the auto filter, so it resonates a bit higher. And I make it move here with the frequency and the resonancy along in the track. So you can create some interesting movements and different sounds and timbres for your screeches by using this kind of techniques. And for the rest, yeah, nothing special. So lots of distortion to create the noise, some controls with the EQ, with the resonancy, and the same room with the reverb, the delay, the sidechain, the clipper, and so on. And then after, I've used the same kind of panning effect, stutter effect for the break, but this time I've used this kind of I've used also the auto filter here to automate the frequency. And what I did here is I recorded the Reese that I've used for the intro. So for the Reese, it's just a Reese bass. So it's a sub, the tune saw waves, and a phaser that I make move also to create that movement. So you can check my Reese bass tutorial to see how to do this kind of sound. And then I'm just using just the compressor, the sidechain compression, because I have an impact here. So I just sidechain this. And so I recorded this Reese bass, and for my second break, I've used this stutter effect. I did also the same. I recorded the impact, and I put this autopan on the impact to create also the stutter effect. And finally, there's a third layer in the break. That's the drone. And so how you can do any kind of drones from any sample. So you see, I've took the sample from the sample that I did for the vocal whisper. I just put in the sampler, and then you can put this sustain mode like this, and just it's gonna go back and forth, and it plays like unlimited amount of that sample. And then just putting lots of distortion and a full-on reverb like this, and you create directly a kind of drone with this. And then you can make resonate. You can also pitch down. You can also make resonate if you want. And just that way you can create some drones from any kind of sample. So you can see I can also use this if I want. I just put like this. And yeah, there you go. So it's a great way to make these kind of pads or drones. And so these three layers are evolving in the breakdown until I reach the vocal. Then I have this new vocal that is coming.
Bind your soul before the devil.
And then I'm gonna have a pattern with the kick. And just before the drop, I'm using also this kind of reversed. So here it's just that I've recorded this kick. So this is the kick sample. I reverse it to make this effect. And then you can also create those kind of glitches that you can hear in SLVL tracks. So it's just the same kick sample, but here I've pitched it up a lot. And you can also automate this if you want to create some more movement. And I've used this along in the track. Also use this kind of pattern to create something heavy. And yeah, that's kind of a variation that you can do easily with your kick. And finally, I just have a few snares in the intro, so nothing special. It's just here I use some higher pitch snare. Gives a bit more heavy and hardstyle vibe rather than just techno. By pitching it up higher and by having those very resonant kind of snares. And finally, just a few effects, pre-drop fills here, some sweeps, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, that's it for this track, guys. I hope you liked it. Thank you so much for the support, for commenting, liking, and subscribing to the channel, and I see you in the next one.